I love therapy, and in fact, I've been going to therapy since I was around 6 years old. Though I talk about therapy a lot and may interview some therapists on the show on occasion, nothing that is said in this podcast should be considered a replacement for therapy. If you are struggling, I urge you to please seek guidance from a therapist because you are absolutely worth it. You are listening to Wine, Dine, and 69, a podcast about dating, relationships, sex, and self-love. I am your host, Rachel Dalton. I hope everybody is doing well as we come to a close of the month of January 2023. Pretty nuts. Everything is just moving so quickly. And if you're listening to this the day that it comes out, the last weekend of my show opens. So if you're in the Philly area, feel free to stop by and say hi this weekend. Other than that, though, ending shows is always like a weird thing for me because I'm going to miss the cast and the group of people that have become my family. I honestly can't remember the last time that a cast and crew like became so close and felt like family. Well, actually, I think I can. It was another Christmas show that I did about 10 years ago. But yeah, it's rare to feel this level of camaraderie with a group of people, and I'm very grateful to have experienced it. This group of people has become my family, my friends, and I'm really excited to stay in contact with them even once the show ends. So I'm excited to have more time to myself. You know, I just got a promotion that took effect this month, so I'm ready to kind of focus on that and some other things that I have going on, the podcast being one of them. But I know I'm going to be really sad too, so it's going to be a kind of bittersweet experience. But anyway, so I wanted to start off this episode today with a question that's kind of been circulating the internet that I want to pose to my listeners. I kind of just enjoy thought experiments like this, so I figured I would share. The question, and I'm so sorry, I'm not going to remember the place that it originally was questioned, but I have heard about it from multiple true crime podcasts that I've listened to, so I'll try to track down where the question is coming from and put it in the episode notes if I can. No promises, though. But the question is, let's say you die. It's not like a traumatic death. It's like of old age and whatnot, and you end up going to wherever you go when you die, whatever your belief is, and whatever whoever is up there, whoever's in charge up there or wherever says, okay, here's the deal. You get to go back to Earth for 5 minutes. Here's the catch, though. You can't see anybody that you know because you're dead. And if they saw you, they would be like, holy shit, that person's dead. And it would be traumatic for them. So you can go back to Earth for 5 minutes and you can go anywhere that you want with that caveat. Where do you go? And it's so funny how the answer came to me right away. You know, I would go spend 5 minutes on the beach of the cottage that I grew up with for the first 23, 24 years of my life. No question, that is exactly where I would go. It is, to this day, my favorite place on earth. It's from the state that I come from. And that's where I would want to spend my last moments on earth. But I'd love to know what your answers are. Where would you want to go? What would you want to do? I don't know. I just love fun little thought experiments like that. And since that's circulating the internet, it's probably a TikTok thing, let's be honest. I figured that I would pose the question to my listeners. Right. The next thing that I wanted to cover was I heard a while ago about an app called We Should Try It. And actually, it's an app called Spicer. We Should Try It is the website that gives you information about the app, so you should check that out. But the app is called Spicer. And I sent it to my partner maybe about a month ago. Because we were away from each other for 3 weeks. And I sent him the app, and I thought it'd be kind of a fun way to be in contact. What it does is it pops up these different options for different things that you could do in the bedroom, and you get to say whether you would definitely do it, whether you're interested in doing it, whether it's like a maybe, like we could talk about it, or whether it's like a hard no. And it's cool because, like, I mean, I'm not the type of person who's shy to talk about what I'm interested in doing, but there are people out there who may not be as comfortable. So it kind of opens a place for you to have a conversation about those things inside of the app so that you don't feel like, see, there's some separation between like your everyday in-person life with this person and the app. So you feel safe to be able to discuss it in the app. Yeah, it's been really interesting. I think that my biggest complaint about it is that I can see the things that we match on. And I think based on what I'm seeing, I can see the things that we're both maybes on. I can't see what his no's are. And that's kind of like the things I'm most interested in, because we've talked about all of the things that, you know, we would be interested in doing. And to be fair, the app does bring up some different things that, you know, I've never thought about or we've never talked about. But yeah, I kind of do. Like, I just like to be able to see what we don't match on, where the mismatches are in our thoughts. Cause those are the things that I want to talk about. So maybe there is a way to do that and we just haven't figured it out yet. I've been so busy that we haven't had a chance to like sit down and actually go through the app. So I will, in the next episode, let's say that I'll update you on that and see if we can figure out, and who knows, maybe we'll figure out something new that we want to try as a result of that. I'm super excited to introduce my guest for today. Kellina Powell is a self-proclaimed deaf queen boss. She is deaf in both ears, and she and I talk today about being deaf and dating and what that's like, what the process is like, how you can be more supportive if you are dating a person who is disabled, and really just kind of going over her story of self-love, and how that's related to her process of dating. So before we get to that, though, I do say in the episode that, you know, people aren't a monolith. No quote unquote group of people is a monolith. People are individuals. And just because, you know, I'm a woman, so let's use this. Just because one woman says that she has this experience does not mean that all women have that experience or share that opinion, right? So just because, you know, Kellina has her own experience, you know, she has said that there are, when she is going out on a date, that she does not mention her disability right away. She just kind of, if it comes up, it comes up. But there are other people who have said that they do want to put it out there right away. So I did include in the episode notes just a few articles about different people's experiences with disability and dating, just because I wanted to, you know, you are hearing Kellina's experience in this episode, but I wanted to share some others. And I do have on the docket a few other people this year that are planning on coming onto the podcast to talk about their disability and how that relates to dating, sex, self-love, all of that good stuff. So, okay, with that, I think that's everything that I wanted to cover today. Let me check my notes. Yep, that's everything. All right, so with that, I am going to go ahead and cut to a quick commercial break, then get into my conversation with Kellina. I don't know about you guys, but it's been a kind of tough start to 2023. It was just a mix of like being really busy and having some, I don't know, a lot of people that I know have kind of had emotional things happen that have just made the day-to-day kind of difficult. So if that's you, you know, I am here with you. I see you. And, you know, you can always feel free to reach out to me to talk about it. I am here for you. And of course, you know that I'm always a huge advocate for therapy. So with that, yeah, here's the commercial and enjoy my conversation with Kellina.
Calling all citizens of Halcyon City. The newest generation of heroes are now painting the pages of delinquent comics. an actual play podcast in the game world of Masks, a new generation. Join our heroes as they struggle to build a team and save the city. Can Titan escape the shadow of his mentor burnout? Is Soul's overwhelming power too dangerous to control? Will Muse discover her past? And how does White Knight's stomach all those strange snacks? Listen to Delinquent Comics to find out at allportsopen.com, Spotify, iTunes, or wherever podcasts are found. New issues become available to all citizens every other Monday.
All right, everyone, welcome back. I am thrilled to have my guest here with me today, Kellina. Kellina, how are you doing today?
I'm doing amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm super excited to talk to you today. We're going to get into a conversation about something that hasn't really been touched on the show quite yet, which is disability and dating. But just kind of for a good jumping off point, how about you go ahead and take some time to tell the listeners who you are, what you do, just a little bit about you and what we're going to talk about today.
Definitely. Hi, everybody. My name is Kellina. I am so many things, honestly. Get ready. Honestly. So I am an author, mental health coach, and I just did an author. Oh my God. So I'm just like losing my mind today. So honestly, I'm an international speaker and I advocate people about the deaf community. Today we're going to be talking about what it's like to be disabled and be dating.
Amazing. So starting off a little bit, like, tell me a little bit about your journey when it comes to disability dating. I don't even know. Like, are you single? Are you dating right now? Like, what's your status? What's your experience with this?
So right now I am single.
Okay.
Dating is very interesting. I would say I would not say it's a bad thing. I would say it's very interesting because a lot of people, not just myself, but especially also the disabled community, they feel like that they always have to get themselves out there 10 times harder than anybody else.
Sure.
Because it's very unfortunate. Like, not a lot of people are aware or educated about disability community, and it's very unfortunate that when we go on dates, especially myself, I have to expose myself 10 times more than anybody else, and you're just like, why am I exposing something that it should not be exposed to, right? And obviously, there's some dates I get rejected because some of them think that it was too much, me being deaf, and it's going to be too hard to communicate, right? Because you have to communicate and listen. So it was a little bit difficulty for some people. So.
It definitely, I would imagine that it takes you must have a very strong sense of self, to be able to put yourself out there like that. Like you said, it takes a new level of vulnerability, right?
Exactly.
Well, what should people know about dating somebody who is disabled? And I guess specifically in this situation, you are deaf in one ear, correct?
I'm deaf in both ears.
Both ears, okay.
Yeah, it's very honestly, because the funny thing is, I was not born deaf, right? So I became deaf at 4, and so I was able to learn how to communicate in a different ways in both community, the deaf community and the hearing community.
Wow.
Everybody communicate very different, especially for myself who know how to communicate, and I'm a super expert when it comes to communication.
I bet.
And so it's very interesting, I would say, because for me, when I got myself out there, honestly, I was so hard because I was getting anxiety because as a deaf person, taking me out to a dinner on first date traumatized me all the time. I'd be like, shoot, I have to sit there, stare at the person's lip 24/7 throughout the whole dinner. So it's kind of awkward, right? Because I don't want the guy saying, "Oh, why is she looking at my lip?" But I'm a lip reader, so I have to read your lip to hear the full conversation. That's how I communicate with the hearing community.
Mm-hmm.
And so
that's an incredible skill.
Yeah. So oh my God, I had this one day. It was so funny. I was sitting on the table with this guy, and he looked at me. He's like, "Why do you keep looking at my lip so much?" I was like, "Oh shoot!" So that's when I was not ready to expose that I'm deaf.
Right.
Okay, Yeah, and it was just like, and I was like, hey, and I told him straight up, and I said, listen, I have something to tell you. You're more than happy to walk out on me if you want. And so he's like, okay. So he looked so confused, and I said, yeah, I'm deaf, by the way. He's like, wait, what? And then I was like, yeah, like, I'm hard of hearing, I wear hearing aids, but that's how I communicate. And he was so, like, his mouth dropped, like, his mouth open. And the waitress came and she's like, oh, what do you guys like to eat? And then he's like, and he shake his head like, oh, I'm sorry, what did you say, sorry? And he's like, oh, I asked, what do you want to order? And then he looked at me and he was just like, oh, would you like me to order for you? And I was like, no, I can order myself. What the heck?
Oh God.
Yeah, and I was just like, it's not that serious. Like, I just told you. But yeah, so it's very interesting in a way.
Well, what is your ideal date then? So if somebody is, taking somebody out who is hard of hearing, what is the ideal? I mean, you said that sitting down at a dinner, looking at across the table, that can be kind of traumatizing, right? What is your ideal date?
For me, honestly, something comfortable. I would say more of activities because that way we're active, we're both active. I feel like you get to know the person a lot more when you do things with them instead of just sitting on the table asking. It's like interview. I hate interview date. I really do.
Yeah. I get what you mean. And I definitely think that there are different people out there. There are people who like I'm more of that person, right? Where I like sitting down, looking at the person in their eyes and having a conversation. But I can definitely, there are a lot of people out in the world, and I can definitely understand, the appeal of doing an activity instead and focusing on that, because then you're bonding over something instead of just looking at each other, like you said.
Exactly. I feel like it gets awkward and silent, and I'm the type of person I hate silence. Honestly, like I will have to in my head. I'm like, okay, yeah, so this and this, like like I don't know. I'm just that type of person that hate awkwardness, hate silence, especially and the dinner table is 10 times more common where there's a lot of awkwardness, especially first time date, where so.
Right. Right. Well, what are some things that, like, along with, like, this idea of an ideal date for you being something more activity based, what are some things that people should know dating somebody who is disabled? And I'm talking more in like a established relationship at this point, versus, disclosing that information.
Yeah, I feel like I would tell people, especially for someone who is looking to date someone who is disability or is interested, 100% I would say don't come off the bat right away. I know a lot of people want to help their partner, but sometimes you have to remember they were independent before they met you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you have to be like, okay, I have to be mindful. I'm a new person in their life. I'm not gonna ask them this specific question just yet. And also too, I would say be patient, right? Dating someone who has disability it's a lot of patience, a lot of patience. If you are someone who do not have patience, I'm telling you right now, do not date someone who have a disability. Because there's so much more towards just being patient, especially dating someone that have disability, because everybody needs are different, right? So I
Right.
know one time, not myself, but just one friend of mine, she said I can tell her story, so don't worry, guys. Like she
You
went
have
on a
permission.
guy, and she I think a guy asked her like, hey, what's your idea of date, right? And so I was just like, isn't the guy supposed to plan the date? And so she's like, no, I prefer a guy asking me what's my ideal date, so that way
Mm,
me feel comfortable. So if you are a guy and interested, definitely ask a lot of the girls, like, or guys, what is your idea of date? Because that way you have a better understanding, right? But now that's very interesting because usually for me, like when I meet guys, they'll be like, hey, let's go out for dinner. I'm like, okay, sure. I feel like that's the new, like the norm, when you
it
go on.
is, yeah.
So and she's like, I'm so tired of that. I'm like, staying here, girl. But yeah, for me, my main tip is definitely always ask questions, but do not go off the bat asking them questions about their disability, especially if it's your first time meeting them face to face. You want to know who you're dating the person, right? You don't want to ask their
Exactly.
disability. I know a lot of people say, like, but I need to know this because I want to make her feel comfortable. Yeah, you will make her feel comfortable when you get to know who she is for who she is, right? If you
Exactly.
right away, she's gonna be off guard and be like, "Why are you asking me about my disability where you're getting to know me for me?" And so, I want a lot of people to know this, that when you ask someone about the disability off the bat, they feel kind of like disrespectful
Sure.
in a way, because you're just like, what the heck? I remember this one guy, same thing. Like, he asked me off the bat on our first date, like, "Oh, okay, can you tell me more about your hearing loss?" So I'm just like, why do you want to know what my hearing loss is? So, just be cautious how you ask questions, because the disability community are very sensitive, especially
Of
when you
course.
ask questions. So that is my advice.
That makes total sense. And I mean, like you said, there is a way to, you will get to know, because people aren't a monolith. Like, nobody is a monolith. No group of people is a monolith. Women are not a monolith. People of color are not a monolith. People who have just there's no right or wrong way. The thing that works for one person to get to know them isn't going to work for another person. So it is best, I think, like, to approach, and I'm just kind of reiterating what you're saying, obviously, here, but it's good to approach people as individuals, and you will learn more about them and their experience, as having a disability, through understanding them as a human being. Because the last thing, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but the last thing that you want is to be broken down to just be in a box with that label, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, when you're dating and you are, I don't know, are you on the apps? Have you been on the apps?
I used to be on, of course, Tinder, the most common app.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, that was the only app I heard. Honestly, I did not want to go on Tinder. I swear to God, you guys, I did not want to go on it. My best friend literally took my phone and she literally signed me up.
Well, I recommend Hinge personally. I met my boyfriend like 4 or 5 months ago on Hinge. That's a good one.
Really? Okay. I never, honestly, ever since my hobo Tinder. Okay, I never been on a hobo date, but I feel like Tinder guys are just looking for
Yeah.
one night stand or
Mm-hmm.
for short term. I'm looking for long term, of course.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that the cool thing, like, Tinder definitely has that connotation of being the hookup app, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to, I think the ones that are like the most tried and true have been like Hinge, Tinder, and Bumble are like the 3 apps that kind of have stood the test of time, right?
Yes, but yeah, especially Bumble. Oh my God, I
Yeah.
went never again. I honestly went on one date from that guy. I'm like, nope, bye.
I get that. Well, when you're on the apps, I mean, and I think that every person is different again, right? Like, people are not a monolith. But are you a type of person who puts it out there, or is it something that I mean, based on what you just told us with that story, it sounds like in some circumstances it's just come up, naturally during a date.
That
How do you
it just come out naturally on a date.
Okay.
Again, it depends on the vibe, right? Are you guys talking? Are you guys having a good time? Or just like, it really depends on the energy of the guy for me. If I feel like his energy is up to beat and he's cool and he's a good guy and everything, then I could definitely, then I would definitely expose it. But other than that, if I'm getting a weird energy, he's only asking me like, okay, what do you do for a living? Okay, what do you do? I'm like, no. I'm not
Again, more interview type questions, right?
Yeah, I'm like, nope, bye. I'm never again.
Hard pass. No, I get it. That's dating is so weird, right? Like, it's already so difficult, like, just to put yourself out there. I mean, again, just the level of vulnerability that you have to exhibit is just more so than a lot of people have to experience. So I really admire that. That's a really, really incredible. And I mean, you have such a good, like, life view on it as well. This idea that people should like you and love you for who you are, and everything else is secondary. So I really admire that.
Thank you. It took me years to get here. I tell people, I mean, people always ask me, like, you have so much confidence to get your stuff out there. And I said, no, it took me years. I've been single for like, what, 6 years now? And, I go on dates and then, but it's more, I really just about the mindset, I would say, because you want to respect yourself and learn how to love yourself first before anybody else. So that was something
Yeah.
I was going through, especially with someone that have a disability. It's super hard for us to give the other person or expose our other half to someone else.
Right. Right. Again, it's that level of vulnerability is just extra. Well,
Yeah.
what did that journey look like for you? You know, I mean, so this podcast is obviously called Wine Dine 69, and is about, you know, sex and relationships and communication and all of that good stuff. But I always do say that, you know, the podcast is about sex, relationships, dating, and self-love, because kind of what you just hit on right there, none of those other relationships that you're going to have with other people, whether it be a one-night stand sexual relationship, whether it be a marriage, whether it be a friendship, none of those are going to flourish if the relationship that you have with yourself isn't solid. So, I mean, share as much as you're willing to. Obviously, you know, this is your time, your episode. But like, what did that experience look like? That journey of self-love and, you know, really coming home to yourself. What did that look like?
Yeah, it's honestly, I did a lot of counseling
Good for
after.
you. Yeah, love therapy.
Yeah, I did a lot, to be honest, because honestly, it's as a disability person, it's so hard to find someone that you can look up to and go to for a piece of advice. And I
Mm-hmm.
never had that when I was growing up, and it was very difficult. Yes, my family are always there for me and everything, but I just feel like I was missing that little piece, you know? Like, when is the perfect time to expose myself to say I am deaf?
Mm-hmm.
And my family said it's when you're ready, but I feel like that was not what I was looking for, you know? And I was looking for something more specific. I don't know what it was. I really don't know. And luckily, like, my ex-boyfriend, and he was really good. Off the bat, he knew I was deaf because I had my hair in a ponytail. And
Mm-hmm.
that time I touched this guy. I swear to God, you guys, if you guys are listening, believe me when I tell you, I touched this guy. I swear to God, I touched this guy tonight. I'm gonna touch this guy tonight. I'm gonna have confidence and put my hair in a ponytail to show I'm who the boss is in this house. Okay.
I love that.
And then he passed the test. So I put my hair in a ponytail. He ordered the food for me, so he didn't even ask. But I think, okay, you know what, I just let him do whatever. So I kind of give him that look. I'm like, so why did you order for me? So he's like, oh, I was just being polite, you know? I'm just trying to help. And I was like, that did not help me. And I was so rude to my ex. And then he's like, I like you. You're a solid woman. And I'm like, what? And then, and it was so funny to the point where the waitress came back and she said something, but he had an accent, so he come from Dominican Republic, so there's
Okay.
so strong. And she said something, he couldn't understand her, so he looks at me to say something, and I'm like, oh, Patty, what did you say? So I understood what she said, and I told him, that's what she said, that's what you want? And then he's like, oh, God, no. It's different. So he wanted this particular food, and then it was so funny. And then after that day, he's like, you're ordering my food starting now. I'm like, okay.
He learned his lesson, huh?
Yeah. So like sometimes date will go unexpected the way you want to, and sometimes you just really have to test yourself a little bit. You know, it doesn't hurt to go on one date to test the guy to see if he's really worth exposing yourself to.
Yeah, I think we put such pressure on ourselves too. Like, you know, I mean, you know, I'm in a show right now, and after we record, I'm going to the theater, and I told my boyfriend, I was like, the last thing that I want to do right now is to like put my hair up in, you know, a period style piece, put makeup on, and like actually look presentable. And that's kind of how it feels in dating, right? Like, but it's always worth it, even just to go on one date to get a sense of the person and if they're worth more of your time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like one date, like a couple hours, like it's not gonna kill you. Just assuming that he's not like a serial killer or something, obviously, in which case, you know, maybe it would be an issue, but we're hoping that these guys have been more vetted, right? Okay, well, we've kind of already touched on this, but communicating in relationships. So many people have struggles communicating already. How do you communicate your needs around this subject in the context of a relationship? I mean, you said that you are looking for a partner who's patient, and that's a big part of it. So I imagine that
a lot of the communication is based around that patience. But, what does your communication style look like? Like, how do you, I mean, I always like to know people's zodiac signs too, like it kind of gives me like a sense of like their personality. Like, how do you communicate your needs?
That's a really good question. For me, how I communicate, I always tell my partner, this is what I have. So, for example, I am deaf, and this is how I communicate, and it's just a problem, right? You have to be upfront with your partner, have that serious conversation, and have the uncomfortable conversation. I feel like a lot of people are not ready for that type of conversation,
Oh
especially
gosh, no.
myself, who is
Yeah.
I have to have so many uncomfortable conversations with all the guys who I thought I would have potential with. And I said, this is how I communicate, and this is something you can't handle, then you have to let me go. And I remember there's one guy, he's like, no, I really like you, blah, 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 blah. But then I'm like, you're not communicating the way how I communicate, And for example, myself, who is a deaf person, I cannot hear very well through the voice note. So instead of people texting, people send voice note. And he was that type of person that sent voice note or call me instead of FaceTiming, right? So I prefer FaceTiming if you're calling me so I can read your lip.
Smart.
And he wouldn't, he's like, oh my God, it's so much work. Like, he would complain too much, basically.
Ooh,
And
yeah, no.
yeah, and I was just like, hey, you gotta go, sir. You gotta go. And he's like, what? And so it's really about knowing yourself as one, and two, knowing who you're dating and who your partner is. It's very important for me. Honestly, it's very hard to have the uncomfortable conversation. But again, everybody's different. I always tell myself, like, you know what? If this guy cannot help me or communicate in my style, especially for me, I'm pretty simple. Like, you just have to look at me face to face, just say what you have to say. But for me, communication, I always like to do a checkup communication with my partner. Every 2 weeks, hey, what can I do better? What can you do better? I always make sure that we see each other once a week, twice a week. It depends on my schedule, my partner's schedule, and dates. Dates is super important for me. At least once a month, twice a month, to really know what's going on in the partner and keep the relationship moving. But that's really how I would communicate with my partner.
You're definitely my kind of girl. I'm that person too. I told my partner a couple weeks ago that I wanted to communicate about our individual goals for the new year and how we could best support each other in those. And just having those like checkups and being like, all right, we're going to check in. What can, I do better? What can you do better? This wasn't on my list of questions, but now I'm curious. What would you consider to be your love languages?
Can you repeat that again?
Oh, sure. What would you consider to be your love languages? There's the different ways of expressing love, or the different ways in which you need to receive love. There is words of affirmation, receiving gifts, quality time, physical touch. Oh, and what's the fifth one?
For me, I would say it is quality time and act of service. So
that's the one I was missing.
Act of service, I would say a lot more for me, because I see that my partner loves to help. And obviously because myself, who's a deaf person, I may need my partner to, not translate for me, but take phone calls for me. So, like, say, for example, if I'm on the phone with the bank and I'm struggling to understand what they're saying through the phone, I would need my partner to help. So I need a helper of my partner.
That makes sense. Yeah. And that is, in a way, like an act of service, is being able to, step in. And again, when you ask for help, not offering to do things that, you want to take on your own. Yeah. Interesting. I just always find it fascinating to figure out, and I'm not surprised by that at all. That you say that quality time and acts of service just based on talking to you for 20 minutes. That makes complete sense to me.
Yeah.
Well, how has this impacted your dating process in the past? I mean, we've kind of talked about how, you have that guy who ordered for you. You but it sounds like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, have the majority of people been, welcoming and understanding? I mean, or have you felt like you've had to teach people a lot of the time?
For me, honestly, when I started the dating journey, it was difficult because I was 20 years old. I was a kid, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I used to think back, I was a kid. Anyway, sorry. I didn't know what to expect, I used to like the guy, I got just mentality basically. And I get rejected a lot in the beginning of the dating phases. I would get a lot of rejection because a lot of guys told me straight up, like, you're a very beautiful girl, but however, you carry a lot on the table because I am deaf.
Mm.
And I
That's
did felt like,
disheartening.
yeah, like, I'm like, am I even worth the dating life?
Yeah.
And I did step back a lot actually from the dating world. And I went back on there, and that's when my friend took my phone, and then she's like, "Oh, let's go on Tinder." And I said, "No, like, I got rejected so many times, like, because I'm deaf, And so, and the baby, it slowly got better, and then as I go on, I realized what to look for and what not to look for, like the red flag, the green flag, and had doing slowly. I would say when I was 21, 22. That's when I started to meet people that was more understanding. They were honest with me. And then eventually, I started meeting more people. And then I started, what, dating is not for me. I took a step back. And that's when I went to go to counseling to figure out why am I getting rejected? And again, I was young. And the counselor said this one piece of advice to me. She said, "You are worthy. There's always going to be that one guy out there that's going to definitely be worth your time. Sometimes you have to go to the garbage guy before you meet your charming."
Yeah, you got to kiss those frogs, right?
And I was just like, "What?" And I'm young, so I don't think this is true. So I'm like, "No." And then I would jump because the point where, like, my friends from, like, high school that were dating, they were like high school sweetheart. And I'm like, "Oh my God, but everybody else was in high school sweetheart. Like, how come I can't find a man?" It's just kind of like, I know I'm pretty, but it's like, why no one would accept me for who I am, even though I am deaf? And I did have a lot of self-doubt, especially when I started. Over the time, it got better with the counseling. She helped me a lot. And that's when I decided to take myself back on the app. And I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to try one more time and see how it goes. And I met so many fascinating guys, or some of them are actually my friends now.
That's
some of them
great.
come up. But I started to realize what I needed. I needed to go on all these dates just to know what I need for myself, especially knowing that I am deaf. I have to accept that. And so I had to learn how to accept for who I am. And say, you know what, Kellina, you're deaf. Yes, there are going to be people out there that are going to reject you because you're deaf, but that does not mean that you deserve love. And so I told myself that every day, every day, every day.
I feel like I'm going to have to write that quote down. That's the heart of the matter, right?
Yeah.
But what, you kind of talked about red flags and green flags. Can you share what some of those are for you?
So the green flags for me is, a guy that is old-fashioned, who loves to learn, and a guy that is open-minded and not very judgmental. I feel like nowadays people are very judgmental for no reason.
Yes, social media has not helped with that.
Yeah, it's like, okay, calm down, sir. I would say, yeah, non-judgmental. Someone that's funny, It's so hard to find some people who try too hard off the bat, especially when you first meet them and they're trying, and you're like, why are you trying so hard? It's the first time meeting, relax. And so I know I met so many guys like that, and they're like, "Oh my God, you're so pretty." Like, they try to be funny, but they're not funny. That's my biggest red flag. You try to be funny, but you're not funny. And sometimes I tell them straight up, like, "You're not funny. Stop doing that."
Good for you.
And some guys, you have to call them out on the BS sometimes because they're embarrassing both of you, especially if you're going on a dinner table. That's the worst. And you're like, just stop.
Oh my God. No, I admire you. I'm afraid to call people out. I don't know if it's like the Midwestern politeness in me or what, but I'm trying to be better at it because it's important. If somebody's spewing BS, then you gotta be able to call it out and put them in their place, right?
Yeah, and I feel like people need to start feeling comfortable about doing that, especially. But the thing is, you have to use it in a polite way. I feel like people use it in an aggressive way, but they
Mm-hmm.
come around it. Like for me, I won't be straightforward with you, but like, hey, cut it. No, I'll be like, hey, if you don't mind, I don't appreciate you saying that. Right? So I know there were some people that when I went on dates, like they would say some really weird stuff to me. I remember this one guy asked me the stupid question ever. He was just like, okay, so how can deaf people listen to music on the first date?
Oh dear.
Yeah. I was like, oh my god. I'm like, date is over. Check, I'm going home. Like, it's like, what? Yeah. And I understand. Not everybody is very knowledgeable about the deaf community. I understand people want to learn and listen, but there's so many ways how you can reword certain things instead of making the person feel uncomfortable. So that was something, that's definitely one of my red flags. But yeah,
Well, and that's the thing too, is that Google exists.
and
Like you don't need to ask somebody who you are on a date with, presumably to get to know them on a personal level. You don't need to use them as your personal Google.
exactly.
If you would like to know more things, I mean, in this situation, right? I'm asking you questions because you graciously, agreed to come on the podcast. When I put out a call for potential guests, right? It's an educational experience.
Exactly.
But if you are taking somebody out on, like, there are so many, and maybe this podcast episode will be one of those educational things that people can go to preemptively so that they don't have to ask those questions to somebody that they, I mean, I can only imagine how disheartening it must be to go out on a date, be maybe excited about it, maybe not, and to be like, have somebody ask you questions that they could ask about the deaf community on Google.
Exactly. I agree. That's how I felt like sometime. In some date, like I would go on a date and I feel like I'm a Google. Like they ask me a question. It's like, oh, I'm educating you. We're in school? I thought we were on a date. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's just, I mean, that's not going to make you feel good. And it just makes them look like an ass. So, well, I guess, let me go back to my list of questions here. Oh, what does your self-love practice look like? I mean, I know that you mentioned that you go to counseling, and that's, I mean, huge fan of therapy here on the show. I think that everybody should be in therapy. But what are some other things that you do, just to take care of yourself, your mental health, and to, make sure that you're staying in contact with the genuine part of yourself?
I definitely stay get my nails done. Come on, ladies. We know we love to
Love
get our
it.
nails done. Come on now. I get my nails done, get my hair done, and also too, I read a lot of self-love books. I love reading books. Um, and it's very important to watch what you feed to your brain. A lot of people don't do that. Especially what you watch on social media. For example, that guy, what's his name? Is that with the T? And everybody,
Andrew Tate.
oh my god, people are talking. Oh my god, I literally mute any video that he didn't end because he brings the negativity about men and women. I was like, okay, you know what? This is not healthy for my brain, so I cut that off like immediately.
Oh yeah, it's rotting your brain just by like having it like in your psyche.
Exactly. So a lot of time that's what I do. I focus on what is positive in my brain and what is not meant to be and what's not meant to be seen. Yes, I understand it's very difficult, but I always tell people you have control of your life 100%. If you see something in front of you, could you erase that out? Yeah, of course you can. But it takes time to out programming it out of your brain. And
Right.
to like your support system, your friends. I always go out with my friends every weekend. We try our best to be consistent with going out with each other and have fun time and do something you love, especially your favorite hobbies. Find hobbies, join a class. I used to do one class with my friend, like a painting class, and it was really cool. But yeah, that's what I do for my self-love and get my mental health in order.
I love that. No, it sounds like you have a very full and vibrant life. And yeah, I love the work that you've just done to be like, yeah, this is who I am, and embracing it, and knowing that, there are and observing, just through your dating, it sounds like there are lots of people that have entered your life and you've just, like, oh, it's okay. We're having faith in humanity a little bit more. Good.
Exactly.
Well, what can you share? This kind of goes along the same idea of kind of self-love, but it's in more of a general sense. What can you share about disability and mental health, and how important it is to focus on mental health?
I would say the reason why it's super important on my mental. Oh, sorry, it's super important to focus on mental health is because, you don't know what comes next, and a lot of people go through so many things in life where they cannot find balance in life. And I noticed that myself with dating, work, business, friends, family, drama, what. And it's super important to really take some time for yourself because you never know when you're going to burn out. Sometimes you don't realize how much you're doing so much, and you all of a sudden you're crying. You're like, why am I crying? Oh my God, this is too much. You really have to listen to yourself, or else you're going to burn out and you may pass away. You never know. I know some people don't focus on the mental health because they felt like it would show them the weakness, I would say. And I do want to make sure that people know that it's okay not to be okay. Not every day it has to be a perfect day. As long as you be consistent moving your body out of the bed, that's super important. If you can get up out of your bed, that's achievable. You know how many people struggle to get out of bed, especially in the hospital beds? There's a lot of
That's
people.
so true.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who can't come out. And, I always remind people, like, hey, be grateful how far you've come in your life. You could have been where you are 5 years ago.
That's so true.
You know?
That sounds like that's a really big part of your gratitude practice too, is just being able to look at where you were at one point and then measuring the distance between that point and where you are now, and being able to give yourself credit and be proud of yourself and to be grateful for the little things that you do have.
Exactly. And for me, like, when I meet people, they always complain or whatever. And I'm like, hey, listen, at least you don't have to hear 10 times harder than I do. It's frustrating for me to communicate daily basics. Like, literally went to the grocery store like a couple hours ago, and I was just so annoyed. I'm like, oh my God, I need to get out of here. There's too many sounds, there's too many people, it's hearing voices everywhere, and it's like, oh my God, I need to get out, So just always be grateful for the little things you have.
Yeah, that sounds like a really overwhelming, nerve-wracking, stimulating experience.
Oh yeah, it is nerve-wracking, honestly. I don't know how I do this, but I've been deaf since I was 4, so I'm kind of used to it by now. So
yeah, it doesn't. But it's so funny too. Just not funny, haha. But this idea that you can get so used to something, and then sometimes years later, like the smallest thing can kind of trigger it, and you're like, "Wow, where did that come from?" Just again, kind of like you said. Progress is not linear, and it's some days you're going to take steps forward, and some days just getting out of bed is an accomplishment.
Of course, 100%.
Well, preparing for this episode, I was doing some research on the topic, and I came across a new dating site called dateability.com. I sent you the article. It's a USA Today article about a woman who started this website. And what are your thoughts on that? Again, people are not a monolith. So some people may really want to approach dating, with a disability by putting it out there on the profile, and some people might not. What are your thoughts on having an app specifically geared towards that? I
never knew that app exists, to be honest with you guys. I had no idea until she messaged me about it, and I'm like, what? There's a dating app? If I knew that, I would have been on it 100%. I would have been on it.
Yeah? There's a couple of them, actually. I just I just typed in disability dating, trying to get a sense of the experience that, you may or may not have had. And a few dating with disability apps came up. So if you do try them, let me know how it goes.
Oh yeah, I will definitely download and let you guys know how it goes. Like, I always wanted what it's like to be deaf. I mean, sorry, to date someone who's also deaf. That's something I always wanted to experience, right? I never experienced that. I always go on dates with guys that are hearing, but never met any guy that is deaf too. So that's pretty interesting. So I definitely check it out. But when I was reading the article, it was very true because she said she struggled a lot in dating because she felt like she had to put herself out there so much, and she felt uncomfortable. But at the same time, she had to expose it because she was not receiving, I guess, the support that she wanted from the guy. And something like that in the article I was reading, and it was so true because not everybody wants to expose their disability on the first date, because what if this date doesn't go well in the end? Why am I going to waste my time?
Exactly.
And I can totally relate to the article, and I would say that is so true. And I thought I was the only one going through that. And again, it really depends on the guy and you. Did you feel comfortable exposing yourself on the first date? For me, I don't, because I'm not gonna waste my time and energy to tell the person, yeah, by the way, like, when I move forward, it's like, like, I am deaf. We have to do something different. So I feel like it's really dependent on the person, but I'm definitely gonna check out the app and definitely see if I can find another deaf guy and see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I would just be curious about that because that entire piece of the equation is taken out of the puzzle, right? Like, you no longer feel pressure to, disclose that earlier, later, like never, because you're on an app, where it's just kind of assumed that that's part of it. So I don't know. I would be curious if that were to take any, if it would alleviate any pressure. And I also wonder, I wonder what it would be like. Obviously people are so different, but be able to date somebody who has had those similar experiences as you and can connect with you on that level.
Exactly. I feel like it'd be different. I just want to tell people that sometimes it's very good to come out of your comfort zone to do something different. I know a lot of people are so used to the same routine and they feel comfortable, but you never know, right? If you come out of your comfort zone, you'd be surprised what the result will be.
Absolutely. And I guess with that, what are some pieces of advice that you would give to someone who is disabled and is feeling disheartened on their dating journey? And how can people better support you and other people who fall under that umbrella, going forward?
I would say the first thing is be mindful how you use your words, especially when you're on date. And number 2, always be patient, right? And 3, do not have high expectation. I feel like every time, everybody always have a high expectation of the person. Go in there with no expectation. Stop having expectation. Like, yeah, he needs to do this. Oh yeah, he needs to do this. If he doesn't do this, I'm gonna cut him off. Oh, I'm gonna turn around. No, you just never know. I wish they
At the end of the day, we're all just individual people looking for a connection, right?
exactly. And I feel like also too, don't force the connection with the person, especially on your first date. Calm down, get to know the person. I know a lot of people will go on the first date and they're like, nope, I don't want to see that person. The date was boring. Once again, don't go with high expectation. Sometimes you have to go on multiple dates. Maybe both of you were shy. Maybe both of you don't know what to say to each other. Maybe you guys don't want to come off rude, or you don't know what to expect. But once again, definitely be patient. Go in there with no expectation and date different people. Don't date just the same person, right? I know I have a friend of mine who's like, oh my God, Kellina, you date so many different guys, so many race. And I said, yes, you're supposed to. I'm so confused. I didn't know you're supposed to date one race. I didn't know. That's not who I am. I'm a very multicultural person. And I'm mixed. So my family is very mixed. So I'm not going to stick with one race. I grew up in a multicultural family. So, but definitely come out of your comfort zone and date different other people, different background. And you just never know who you turn into. You never know who your future husband is. You really don't know. And I always tell people the future is there, but you have to get yourself out there, especially have no expectation. You just have to, okay, you know what? Let's see how the day goes, keep going forward. And especially if someone who have a disabled, don't have high expectation on it and don't be surprised if we refuse your help. That's another a lot of people really get like, oh, why would she not want my help? Why would she not? Just remember, she was independent before she met you. Am I not wrong? So you just have to be patient with her and accept the no. And I know a lot of people want to help people, but at the same time, you guys have to remember, they were independent before you even came in. So always accept the no. You just have to accept the no.
Yeah, I think that's a great piece of advice. I mean, just across the board, like accepting the no, not having high expectations. I mean, you should always have high expectations for how you want other people to treat you, right? But having expectations, like, I mean, you're just setting yourself up for failure if you are going into a date being like, I loved his profile, I think he's the one. And then, when he ends up being a dud, it's just going to hurt even more because you set yourself up for disappointment.
I 100% agree. And there's so many, not girls, but guys too, right? When they look for a woman, they have this crazy woola in their head. And I'm like, you are crazy, sir. And he said the same thing of this girl. I'm like, you are crazy, because no girl will check up everything that you are looking for. And that's the one thing people need to understand is not one person, even if you're a partner, they're not going to check up everything that you want in a partner.
Yep. Yeah, we are all human and very flawed.
Yeah, and it's not, especially even worse for someone who with disability, like myself. You can't have I cannot have every expectation you have for me. I'm sorry, but that's not who I am. And I feel like people need to be really mindful and conscious, because you never know when your partner will have a disability down the road. You are likely to be having disability so quick. You just never know. For example, you get into a car accident, your partner have a disability, what are you going to do now? Right? So
Right.
It's very hard.
Yeah, no, things can change very, very quickly. That's true.
I was going to say, I tell people, honestly, just if you're dating someone who's disabled, just be patient, and please be careful how you use your words, especially if you're asking a question. Just be very cautious how you're acting. And that is my last advice.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Kellina. It's been wonderful talking to you. Thank you for sharing, your stories and your experiences and just your overall thoughts. This is the first, I think, episode that we've had on this topic, and I really, admire you for opening up and being willing to share. I really, really appreciate it. So thank you.
Not a problem. Anytime.
And did you have anything? Where can people find you? Do you want them to? I know that you said you do some different public speaking things. Is there anything that you want to shout out, or where can people find you?
Definitely, you guys can find me on my Instagram, which is Queen Boss. And I do have a book that's on Amazon, so you can just type in Kellina Powell. I know a lot of people couldn't find my book title a lot of times, so I would just say it here. So my book title is Every Day I Am Just Deaf. So you can definitely find it on Amazon. And definitely hope you enjoy your book. And my book is a very poetry book, so it's not a long book or anything like that. It's just a poetry book about me being deaf in the hearing community, so that way you have an idea what it's like to be deaf in the hearing community.
Oh, I'm definitely going to pick a copy. I try to get copies of all of my guests' books.
Oh, thank you.
So I'll definitely pick one up for sure.
Thank you.
Well, thanks so much, Kellina. I really, like I said, appreciate you being here, and wishing you all the best in this new year as we go into, dear God, 2023.
Thank you. You too. I hope you have a fantastic 2023, everybody, and I hope you guys have a lovely year.
And everybody, thank you so much for listening. Wishing everybody else here listening the best in 2023 going forward. You've been listening to Wine, Dine, and 69. I am your host, Rachel Dalton, and let's keep talking.